Good morning. Let me tell you something simple but powerful. How you start your day determines how you finish it. Laziness isn't some villain that breaks in and steals your ambition. It's a quiet whisper that says, you can do it later. The problem is, later becomes never, and never becomes regret. You don't need a 40-step morning routine or a monk's discipline. You just need to take control of your first hour. That's it, win that, and you win the day. Own the first hour. That's where the battle is won or lost. Not at noon, not when deadlines loom, not when the pressure builds, but in the quiet moments right after you open your eyes. That first hour is the foundation upon which your entire day is built. Most people treat their mornings like an afterthought. They stumble out of bed, grab their phones, and let the world invade their peace before they've even taken a breath. But the successful, the disciplined, the focused, they protect that first hour like their life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. You see, the way you begin your day creates a momentum. Either you're building energy, purpose, and clarity, or you're stacking confusion, passivity, and noise. If you let your morning happen to you, you're surrendering control. But if you own that time, if you seize it with intention, everything else starts falling into place. The first hour isn't about checking tasks off a list. It's about setting your state. It's the most critical part of your routine because it tells your brain, this is who we are today. Are you someone who reacts or someone who leads? Someone who drifts or someone who directs? Most people think they don't have time in the morning. That's not true. They don't have priorities. Because if it truly mattered, if they understood what was at stake, they'd never give that first hour away so cheaply. Waking up just a little earlier, getting up before the noise, before the distractions. This isn't just discipline, it's strategy. It's setting the thermostat for the entire day, and if you want a hyper-forming day, you better stop starting it cold. When you own the first hour, you send a message to yourself, I'm in charge. That message matters more than any external motivation. You don't need loud alarms, fancy routines, or trendy habits. What you need is the internal decision that this hour is yours, that this time is sacred, that for 60 minutes you are completely unavailable to laziness, hesitation, and doubt. You're not scrolling, you're not reacting, you're not consuming noise. You're doing the things that build clarity and momentum. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's planning your day, reading something that sharpens your thinking, or just sitting in silence to command your mind. Whatever it is, it should wake up your discipline, not your stress. The difference between people who drift and those who dominate is what they do with the hours no one sees. And the first one, that's the crown jewel. If you build a system around it, if you guard it with discipline and structure, laziness won't even stand a chance, because by the time most people are still fumbling through their coffee, you've already built the foundation of a winning day. Laziness thrives on indecision, not because you're weak and not because you don't care, but because every time you hesitate, you give laziness an opening. That split second when you say, maybe I'll start in a bit, is exactly where it creeps in. Laziness isn't always about lying on the couch doing nothing. It's much more subtle than that. It's the voice in your head that says, should I get up now or rest a little longer? It's the pause before taking action. And in that pause, momentum dies. You can be full of ambition, plans, even motivation, but if you let indecision sit for too long, all that fire fades into fog. The mind likes to avoid discomfort. That's natural. So when you hesitate, when you delay choosing, your brain fills the gap with easier options, more comfortable paths, and laziness always wears the mask of comfort. It offers relief in the moment, but steals progress in the long run. You might think you're just thinking things through, or waiting for the right time, but often those are just excuses wrapped in good intentions. And while you're busy thinking, your goals are standing still. The world doesn't wait, neither should you. Indecision creates friction. The longer you stay in that state of maybe, the heavier the task feels. A simple action becomes complicated. A 5-minute job starts to feel like a mountain. That's how laziness wins, not with force but with silence. It doesn't need to convince you to quit. It just needs to keep you undecided. The longer you sit at the crossroads, the less likely you are to move at all. One missed action turns into a missed day, and a missed day turns into a pattern. Eventually, you look back and wonder why you're stuck. But it started the moment you said, "I'll decide later." The cure isn't motivation, it's decision. Quick, clear decisions backed by action are how you kill laziness before it even speaks. When the alarm rings, you get up. Not because it's easy, but because you said you would. When the thought comes to skip your task, you act anyway. Not because you feel like it, but because you've already decided that the work matters. You don't give yourself a debate. You give yourself a direction. You train your mind to stop entertaining two options. There is only forward. The people who beat laziness aren't superhuman. They've just learned to close the door on indecision. They've built habits where action happens without inner negotiation. That discipline gives them freedom. Because when you don't waste time deciding whether or not to act, you have more time to build, create, grow. Indecision robs you of that. It steals your energy without making a sound. The sooner you realize that hesitation is the gateway to laziness, the quicker you learn to cut it off at the root. Decide fast, act faster, because every moment you delay is a moment laziness gets stronger. And your goals deserve more than that. Create a simple, unbreakable routine. That's the secret weapon. Not something flashy, not something overwhelming, but something clear, repeatable, and built to withstand the ups and downs of everyday life. Most people wait for motivation to strike. They think discipline means waking up every day with fire in their chest. But the truth is, even the most driven people have days when they don't feel like doing anything. What separates them from everyone else isn't how they feel. It's the fact that they've built a routine that doesn't care how they feel. A routine so ingrained that it becomes automatic, almost immune to emotion. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it unbreakable. We often think productivity requires complexity, journals, gadgets, elaborate systems. But simplicity is what actually works. A handful of clear actions you take every single morning without negotiation. Maybe it's waking up at the same time, drinking a glass of water, moving your body, reading something uplifting, reviewing your goals, and planning your day. Not 20 things, not perfection, just a solid few. The simpler the routine, the harder it is to break. When something is too complex, it becomes fragile. And when life throws you stress, fatigue, or chaos, as it inevitably will, complicated routines shatter. But simple ones bend, not break. The key is to remove choice. You don't ask yourself if you'll do it. You don't debate it. You've already decided. You wake up, you do the routine. The routine becomes identity. And identity is stronger than motivation. If you see yourself as the kind of person who does these things, you won't want to let yourself down. That's the beauty of consistency. It builds self-respect. Every time you follow through, even in small ways, you reinforce the idea that you can trust yourself, that you're someone who follows through. And self-trust is one of the most powerful assets you can develop. Some days your routine will feel easy. Other days, it'll feel like a grind. That's normal. The goal isn't to enjoy it every time. The goal is to do it every time, because repetition builds resilience. And over time, that routine becomes the anchor. It grounds you when life gets messy. It sharpens you when your mind gets cloudy. It moves you forward when everything else is trying to pull you back. The strongest routines don't rely on passion or willpower. They run on rhythm. Build your routine small enough to do every day, strong enough to resist excuse, and clear enough that you don't need to think. It doesn't need to change with trends. It doesn't need to impress anyone. It just needs to work. If you create something simple and commit to it, it becomes unbreakable, not because it can't be broken, but because you've made the choice not to break it. That's how you kill laziness. Not with bursts of effort, but with the quiet force of a routine that never skips a beat. Don't negotiate with yourself. That's the rule. The moment you start opening the floor for discussion in your own mind, you've already started losing ground. That early morning voice that says, maybe 5 more minutes, or I'll do it later, isn't there to help you. It's there to distract you. It's the sound of comfort trying to pull you back under. And if you entertain it, even for a second, you give laziness room to breathe. The people who get things done, who move forward day after day, aren't superhuman. They've just shut that door. They've removed the internal vote. When the alarm goes off, there's no debate. The decision has already been made. They don't ask, they act. Negotiating with yourself is a habit. It starts small. One skipped workout, one delayed task, one ignored plan. You tell yourself, just this once. But that's the lie. It's never just once. Every negotiation weakens the structure. Every delayed action teaches your brain that your word can be bent. And when your word to yourself becomes negotiable, your confidence begins to erode. Because deep down, you start to realize you can't trust your own promises. And that loss of trust, even in the smallest things, spills into everything else. You have to decide, once and for all, that certain things are not up for discussion. If you said you'd wake up early, you do it. If you said you'd train, you train. If you said you'd spend the first hour focused, then distractions don't get a seat at the table. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed. Life is already full of external obstacles. Don't let your own mind become another one. When you negotiate with yourself, you burn time and energy you could have used to make progress. Action is simple. Thought spirals are what make it hard. Discipline comes from clarity. You know what needs to be done, so you do it. That clarity doesn't mean the task will be easy. It just means it's non-negotiable. You can be tired, you can be annoyed, you can feel completely uninspired, and you still show up. Not because you feel like it, but because the decision was made before the discomfort ever showed up. That's how routines get built. That's how discipline becomes identity. You have to treat your commitments like law. Not feelings, not suggestions. Law. When you set a standard and stick to it, you train yourself to move with decisiveness. That sharpness spills into everything else. You start making faster decisions. You stop wasting energy in mental tug-of-wars. You become someone who moves without hesitation. That's how you stay ahead, not by being better than others, but by being better than your own excuses. And that starts by refusing to negotiate. Because when your mind knows there's no wiggle room, it stops trying to bargain. And when the bargaining ends, the work begins. Momentum beats motivation every time. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. Unpredictable, unreliable, and completely outside your control. One day you wake up feeling fired up. The next you can't even remember why you started. That's the trap so many people fall into. They wait until they feel like doing the work. They wait for inspiration, for the perfect mood, for some magical surge of energy to hit. But it rarely does. And even when it does, it doesn't stay. The people who move forward, who make real progress, aren't the ones who rely on motivation. They're the ones who understand the power of momentum. Because momentum isn't emotional, it's mechanical. You start moving, and that movement generates energy. One small action leads to another. That's how forward motion is built, step by step, not in a flash of excitement. Most people overestimate the power of motivation and underestimate the power of momentum. They think success is about being inspired all the time. But the truth is, most progress happens on the days you don't feel like showing up. That's where momentum takes over. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't wait for the stars to align. It just keeps going because yesterday you did the work, and today you're continuing that rhythm. Momentum turns hard beginnings into easier follow-through. It turns resistance into routine. It makes effort feel natural, even when it started out heavy. The hardest part is always starting. The mind will throw every excuse at you. You're tired. You've got time later. It won't matter if you skip just once. But once you begin, those voices start to fade. Action silences hesitation. And the beauty of momentum is that it compounds. One good morning turns into two. Two focused hours turn into a full productive day. And that day becomes a week and then a streak, and suddenly you're moving faster, smoother, stronger. You're not waiting for motivation anymore. You're being pulled by progress, and progress is far more powerful than a burst of emotion. The secret isn't doing a lot all at once. It's doing a little consistently. 5 minutes of focused action is more powerful than an hour of procrastination followed by regret. Because the 5 minutes can spark 10. And 10 can become 30. It's not about how big the effort is. It's about starting it. That's how momentum works. It builds slowly but reliably. It stacks wins. It turns effort into identity. And soon enough, what once felt hard becomes who you are. If you learn to respect momentum more than motivation, you'll find that laziness has no room to breathe. Because even when you're tired, you still move. Even when you're uncertain, you still take the next step. And in doing so, you build something far stronger than inspiration. You build discipline in motion. That's what carries you through the days when nothing else will. Discipline is a daily decision. It's not something you're born with, and it's not a character trait reserved for the few. It's a choice you make over and over again, every single day. The problem is, most people think of discipline as a one-time commitment. They make a bold promise on a Sunday night, fueled by guilt or motivation, and they expect that decision to carry them through the week. But it doesn't work that way. Discipline fades unless it's renewed. It has to be chosen each morning, in each small moment, in every little test of will. And that's what makes it powerful. It's not some grand, abstract ideal. It's practical. It's a decision that sits right in front of you every time you feel the urge to quit, delay, or coast. There will always be reasons not to do what you said you would do. Some days it will be fatigue. Other days, doubt. Sometimes it's comfort calling your name. Sometimes it's fear in disguise. Discipline doesn't eliminate those things. It just overrides them. It says, I'm going to do it anyway. Not because it's easy. Not because it's fun, but because you already decided that your goals matter more than your mood. And the more you choose that path, the stronger that muscle gets. Discipline is like a daily vote. Each time you act in alignment with your values, you cast a vote for the person you're trying to become. And over time, those votes add up. The truth is, discipline is boring. It's repetitive. It's not glamorous or exciting most of the time. But that's what makes it real. It shows up when no one's watching. It does the work when the spotlight is off. It puts in the reps, regardless of the weather, the mood, or the convenience. Discipline doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about the finish line. And when you wake up each day and choose to follow through on your health, your work, your goals, you reinforce something deep inside you. You prove to yourself that you are capable, consistent, and trustworthy. There's no shortcut to it, no hack. No motivational speech can replace the small, quiet decision to do what needs to be done. That's the kind of discipline that transforms lives, the kind that builds something solid over time. Because when you decide to show up daily, regardless of circumstances, you start becoming unshakable. And that consistency begins to bleed into everything else. Your energy improves, your confidence grows, your results multiply, not because you had some magical moment of clarity, but because you made the right decision enough times that it became who you are. Every day presents a fork in the road. One path leads to excuses and delay, the other leads to discipline. The choice will never stop showing up. The real question is, will you? That's the daily decision. And that decision, more than talent or luck or timing, is what separates the people who talk from the people who build.